Morning, welcome to Chat UTD. This is my preview of the Ipswich game and also just a quick look back at some of the stuff like press conferences and interviews with Ruben Amorim over the last week. I'll start there. I'm not reading too much into all that stuff. He's obviously media savvy. I think anyone at that level now will be, and he and everyone in that type of position will know the right things to say. He's not going to come out and make a fool of himself, but of course, first impressions I think have been pretty good, and he comes across well. He's quite charismatic. He certainly has a lot more flow to the way he speaks than Ten Hag did, and carries himself in a slightly different manner, which I think is good. But one thing's for sure, within a few months, if not maybe perhaps a year, we will start to recognise his flaws. We will start to look at his idiosyncrasies, his little patterns of stubbornness, his traits that we don't like. They will absolutely come to the surface, but we just don't know what they are yet. Like the beginning of any relationship, I suppose. So I'm just mindful that I'm not going to read too much into it, having been here now 5 times since Fergie, 6 times since Fergie. But looking at a couple of the things he did say, and just that I think are worth perhaps looking into a little bit more. He was asked about whether or not he was going to have a transitional start where he sort of eased the players into the way of doing things. And he was pretty emphatic in his answer that he was going to do it the way that he's always done it, is one way, and that's his way, and that's good. But he also mentioned at some point in the press conference, he said the Ineos way. And for me, I find that quite interesting because I'm still in that stage where I don't, when I'm talking about United, as in Jim Ratcliffe, Brailsford, Barada, Ashworth, I don't just say United, I say Ineos, because it's not quite a year since they've been with us. So I'm still in that phase where I say Ineos, not United. And there is that clear distinction, I think, between pre-Ineos and now them being in charge. And for me, Amorim's their missing piece of the jigsaw, because we can now, I think, truly start to assess Ineos. Again, at one point we'll call them United, but right now it's Ineos, because they've obviously they've done the scaffolding bit. They've got in Barada and they've got in Ashworth, and that's a scaffolding towards hopefully the renovation, and they need a master tradesman to come in and lead that, and that is the manager or the head coach, and they've got their person doing that now. But I think it was interesting that he used that expression, the Ineos way. Just something I picked up on. He mentioned that the principles of 3-4-3 or his formation are the same. Really, he said the professional footballers, they should be able to adapt to that. It's more perhaps the way he wants them to play that perhaps will take some time. He mentioned that we give the ball away too much, which is obviously true. He said that we need to run more and run back more. Absolutely. It's a bit of a concern that when Solskjaer came in, he said we needed to run more. When Ten Hag came in, he said we needed to run more. And when Amorim's come in, he said we needed to run more. And that's despite a high turnover of players, which indicates to me that when new players come in, the culture of the team is so poor that they get swallowed up into that. We don't buy players who have a reputation for not running. You know, 3 separate managers have now said we need to run more, so they're going to buy players who they think are going to run, obviously. But whatever's going on the training ground, whatever's going on at the club, the standards have been set so low that people stop running. And that isn't these players anymore, in terms of like players that have been here years and years and years, as I've mentioned. The only one that's in the team that's been there years and years and years is Rashford, but it's a big problem because he's on 350 grand a week. He's the highest paid player, and he doesn't run, and that sets a tone and that sets a culture. And I will keep saying it, whether people are bored of it or not, because it's a massive issue. You know, that sets the tone, and it sets a culture, and it sets the environment. So new players come in, see that that's the yardstick to get the most rewarded, and human psychology is you descend to that level, unfortunately. And United have made a rod for their own back there. So I think that is massively interlinked. And I'm going to come back to that a little bit later with the team he picks today, and and I hope that there's a big difference in it. He mentioned that he wants everything to be team first, and he said, "I'm happy to be sacked if I know that my players are giving everything for me and the team. And happy to take the responsibility. He'll defend them to the hill, defend them to the hill. But if he sees that that's not the case, he'll be the first one to call it out and deal with that himself." Again, referring to the player I just spoke about, that will be interesting. I also watched the Gary Neville interview, which I thought was probably better than the press conference, and I've got to give credit to Gary Neville because he could have just asked a series of mundane questions, but Gary Neville on Stick to Football this week has had a chat with the panel and said about the trip to America with Casemiro and Rashford, and that he thought it probably wasn't the best of choices, and that he wondered what the new manager thought about it. And then he asked, and I think he's brave to ask, and the answer was really, really positive on Amorim's behalf, because it wasn't just a standard manager speak type answer. It wasn't a towing the party line answer. He said that the players can't be held responsible too much because they weren't given any parameters as to what they could and couldn't do. He said they were given time off, and that was just a blanket. You've got time off to do with what you want. He mentioned that when they have time off, it needs to be obviously how many days have you got, what can you do, what can't you do, can you fly, how far can you go, what do we expect you to do, what conditioning are you going to be doing, and he used the word standards. And on the day that Ten Hag was sacked, just before he was sacked, I did a video entitled, I can't remember whether it was Standard Bearer Wanted or Standard Bearer Needed, referring to a manager, because Ineos at this moment in time are not quite setting those standards. And from February, when we first heard from Sir Jim Ratcliffe, what we've heard from Ineos is that they want an elite environment. They want a culture to develop at United, and they're going to set that culture and they're going to set that environment. And the word elite has been used a lot. Well, they've passed that time off. They've said that's okay for them to go and do that. It's interesting that with all this structure they've got, it's still taken a new manager to come in and say, "No, I don't think that's right." And he's referred to the standards. So there's two things there. One, Ineos are not setting that culture of elite attitude just yet. Maybe they're heading towards it. Maybe they need a manager to do that. And two, I really like that Amorim was able to in some way disagree with his bosses in his answer. That just stood out to me. In terms of what type of manager he's going to be, it's interesting. I think Goldbridge referred to him as a smiling assassin, and I kind of know what he means. Amorim said, I can't remember if it was in the press conference or Gary Neville's interview, he said, I'm 39, he said, I know all the tricks. Meaning I know all the tricks of players. And it's a little bit of a warning, I think. It's a little bit of a, you're not going to pull the wool over my eyes, but he's doing it in a very friendly way. He also mentioned in the MUTV interview, he said, I played in every position, including being on the bench quite a bit and not playing as much as I would like, apart from goalkeeper and striker. So he said, whenever I give a player an instruction, I've had that instruction myself. I have empathy for them. I know how they feel. But I think what that also says is, I'm not asking you to do something I wouldn't have done as a player. And that's. Listen, I'm not getting carried away, but I think what Roy Keane used to say is, I'm not asking you to do things that I can't do myself or I wouldn't do myself. And I think that's a good strategy and a good trait of a leader to do that kind of thing. But what type of leader is he? I don't know. We've had, if you just look at from Jose to now, we had Mourinho, who was the authoritative, oppressive disciplinarian, the strict school teacher that nobody really liked, in the team anyway. Replaced by Ollie, who was the fun supply teacher, like Mr. Poppy from the Nativity, but there was no substance to it. There was no longevity or sustainability to that type of management, as was proven over a period of time. He wasn't strong enough. He spoke himself about players just turning up late for training. He said about that about a year or so after he was sacked. Well, what are you doing about that? That probably wouldn't happen under Mourinho. If it did, there would be serious implications. So you've gone from Mourinho to Solskjaer, and then back to something of an authoritative or disciplinarian figure in Ten Hag. The problem for Ten Hag is he didn't have the gravitas. So he came in and I think tried to be quite a disciplinarian. But the players probably just looked at him and went, who are you? Like, you can barely speak our language. Like, what he doesn't carry himself in that way where you're probably going to listen to him. And clearly, either his message was getting lost, or he wasn't very, or he wasn't giving a very good message. I don't know. But what I'm saying is, I suppose we've gone from disciplinarian to fun day camp to another disciplinarian who didn't quite have the same aura as the first disciplinarian. So what have we gone to now? I think hopefully somewhere in the middle, someone that can be. I think I might have used this terminology in one of my recent videos. He needs to be supportively challenging. It's that he'll support you to the hilt, but he's going to challenge you as well. That's the dream, I suppose. And for those people that believe in omens, Amorim is the 6th manager since Sir Alex Ferguson, and Sir Alex Ferguson was the 6th manager, permanent manager, since Sir Matt Busby. So who knows if that's an omen or not, hopefully. Moving on to the game today, I think we'll win. I think we'll win whatever team he picks, because I think we've got a better team, and I think they will be more up for it than they have been previously. In terms of how good the performance is going to be, he's not had that long with them, but and again, if you don't like this type of stuff I say, you just won't listen, that's fine, but I am going to bring Rashford back into it. I think he makes an awful lot of difference as to how big a bounce we have, because if you're trying to implement a new system, a new strategy, a new formation, new ideas, new ways of playing, you can't carry passengers, and there's no doubt he's a passenger. I said it earlier in the season, we're not good enough to carry passengers, but when you're trying to make such a drastic change from what we've been doing to what you want to do next, you can't have a passenger in the team. Excuse me. And I think we need everybody to buy in. We need everyone to be on board. And I don't see a place for him in the team. Excuse me. There's talk of him playing up front. Oh, no, we've got a £72 million young player in Rasmus who needs investment, who needs time, who needs to be nurtured. And really, I think one of Amorim's biggest tasks, forget Rashford, is about getting the best out of Rasmus like he got the best out of Gyökeres. That's what he needs to replicate that. I don't think that's beyond the realms of possibility. So put Rashford in place of Højlund and stunt Højlund's growth. Højlund needs to be in the team. The two positions in behind, he could maybe play in one of them, but I would say there's better players. I'd say Amad and Bruno, as I mentioned before. The flow of the team, the cohesion of the team, the freshness, the expressiveness is all impacted upon when Rashford's in there, and I think it's a big call, and I would like him to make it. I would like him to set that tone early, and I think that's really important. If we do that, I think we could win. For some reason, I've got 4-1 in my head today. I think we can win 4-1, 4-2. I know he's probably going to have to play a couple of square pegs in round holes. It depends who's available. There was talk of Ahmad playing at wing back, which I wouldn't see him as a wing back, but that's been discussed. We're not going to know, are we, until the team sheet comes out. But I'm excited to see the changes that he makes. I'm excited to see how big a difference that can make in obviously in a short period of time. But it's the first time when I've really anticipated watching a game and looked forward to it. I've been looking forward to it for some time, just to sort of see, as I say, something different. But I have a feeling that if Rashford starts, it'll be we'll win. We'll probably win 2-1 or something like that, and we'll go. If we get brought off after about 60 minutes, he'll have been rubbish, and then we'll go. Yeah, I can see what Amorim's trying to do. You can see these little tweaks. You can see these little things. But if you haven't got 100% buy-in from players, it's not going to be that different. You have to pick a team where you've got 100% buy-in from. So if he plays today, if he does play, he needs to drop a 9 out of 10. He needs to score 2 goals. He needs to be on fire. If he does that, shuts everybody up, fine, no worries. But we need to start holding players accountable for their performances and not just pick them because of the money they're on or what's in their contract or whatever. And that's where Amorim said earlier, I mentioned earlier about standards. He needs to set those standards as the manager. He gets to pick the team. I hope he gets to pick the team anyway. So I think Ipswich, no disrespect to them, are quite a poor team. So the crowd will be up for it, all that kind of stuff. But we should be winning that game, whatever, really. That said, again, going back to the old days, Ferguson's first game was at Oxford United. We lost 2-0. I'm sure people were... And Atkinson was quite popular. Ron Atkinson was quite popular with United fans, who was sacked. So didn't get off to a great start, and we were still okay after that. So I'm open to anything happening, really, I suppose. I never was able to predict what United would do under Ten Hag, and I've been watching it for 2 and a bit years. So it's difficult when a new person comes in, you're not sure what team he's going to pick, not sure exactly how the formation is going to work. But looking forward to it, and let's hope the match reaction is a positive one, and we can talk about Rashford scoring a couple of goals and United playing really well, and a fresh new era of being upon us. Up Rubin's Reds, Glazers out.